good morning or afternoon to you all, and thanks for joining me for the talk. So let me quickly start off by introducing myself. I'm Mike Milnes and I work at Senko Advanced Components. I'm based in the UK office, although at the minute I'm working from various rooms around the house, which is something I'm sure every single one of you guys know all too well. So my role within Senko is to understand the needs of our customers, specifically in the wireless side of the business, and see where we can offer some expertise and how we can help you with the product range and tools that we have at our disposal. My talk today will focus on a few of the outdoor connectors that we have in our range and how they came about, starting at the thinking process behind them and why they were developed, right the way through to the use cases that they have today and the extra features that have developed over the time that add extra advantages to the product set. There will of course be a Q&A session at the end, but also there's the Q&A box. So if you've got any questions, type away during the presentation or at the end, and we'll go through everything at the end. So let's crack on and introduce the outdoor connector that started this all off, the IP16. There we go. So I feel that before we get into any great detail about the full product range we have, I should explain up front about the naming scheme behind the products, as it will help later on with all the variants that we have. As you can see on this slide, the way in which we determine the nomenclature of our wireless range is a very simple one. We take the diameter here of the product and simply half it, or for those with sharper eyes and minds, we use the radius. And this forms the basis of our full IP range and how they are named. So you'll see here, IP16, 16 mil is the radius. The IP16 connector and adapter was our first foray into the outdoor market. This was way back in 2012, and it was the natural step for us to make as a components manufacturer. Our customer base was growing and we had a number of inquiries about whether we had this option in our range. Many customers had a pain point when it came to lead times of other connectors that they were using at the time from various other sources. We didn't have this product and the decision was made to invest in this area. We came up with the IP16, as you can see here. Nothing particularly groundbreaking from a design point of view, as it followed the ODVA standard and did what it was supposed to do, which is provide our high quality ferrules in housing that protects it to a high specification. All of the outdoor connectors that we make have been built using our standard product range that guarantees the user's high quality, as the components have been used for many years now and have been proven to work time and time again. As with all the following products in our outdoor range, this was IP68 rated and meets the specs required for outdoor use, and in many cases goes beyond these standards. So you'll see on the slides over here a number of different areas that the product has currently been used in: telecom, wireless, broadcast, oil and gas, and mining. Now, of course, these are all areas you'd expect to see an outside plant connector used. Just as a very quick aside, and apologies if you are fully aware of the terminology, which most of you probably are, but for those who aren't, when I say the product's IP68 rated, it means it's been tested to the highest level where it was submerged in water for 30 minutes at a depth of 1.5 meters. Having this rating gives the user confidence that the product can operate in any standard setting around the world. And obviously the 68 is the highest one that you can see on the screen there. This connector wasn't just designed and then left to live out the rest of its lifespan in the same format that it started. When speaking with our customers about the issues they face with a number of products in the outdoor connector market, we realized there was an issue with accidental disconnection, whether it be down to human error, down to the elements, or in even some cases animals managing to disconnect things. Now, we know that any downtime can, of course, cost thousands of dollars. And if this can be avoided, then it gives everybody peace of mind. It was then that the patented lock ring came into being. You can see it down here on the bottom right, this little red ring here. Now, when this lock ring is pushed into place, this allows the installer to know with confidence that the connector is not only installed correctly, but it also cannot be unscrewed from the adapter without first pulling it back and then undoing the bayonet fitting. During the design phase of this, we tested how successful this was by giving the product to some installers and riggers that we work with and basically asked them to try and break it and remove it when the lock ring was engaged. And we were pleased to find out that they failed to do this, which in our eyes was a massive win. The simple design has since been incorporated into all of our outdoor products that we've created from this day onwards, due to the ease of use and how well it works. Now we'll just press play on this quick video. There we go. So you'll see that the lock ring is firmly behind. The bayonet the bayonet connector fits into place. You twist it and it locks. You can feel and hear a little clicking sound. The lock ring then pushes up behind it, and you'll see there that it's now firmly installed. And without pulling that back, you won't be able to remove it. You'll see in a second that we've had some customers only really in the FTTA side of things that will attach a little cable tie to the back just for that extra sort of bit of security. But this is only because they know that it's going up a tower and it's never going to be touched again. Now, over the years, we've been asked by a number of customers if we offered a hybrid connector, obviously with optical and electrical. At the time, it was not something that we had. This call came from various sectors, but a big push was from the FTTA industry from various countries, where the customers were being charged per cable that they attached to the mast. Therefore, if we could combine the power and the fibre, they could effectively halve the cost that they have to pay per site. Out of these conversations that we were having, the engineers here gathered all the data together of what the customers were needing and got to work. Now, if you look at the bottom left of the screen here with the pointer, this is the connector that came into being, the IP1. Now, this, of course, strays away from our standard naming of the products that we have. The radius is not 1 mil. If it was, I think everyone would be very happy with that. It's given this name because it's the all-in-one solution. It has optical and electrical. So we use the same housing that works very well with the IP16 connector, and it comes with the option of either a pair of LC ferrules or an MC ferrule. Either choice coming with two 12-gauge AWG pins, 4 mil squared worth of power. Now, as the industry is moving towards 5G at a rapid rate, I mean, it's here, the power consumption that these radios require is also increasing. This shift, along with some towers having a lot more radios on them, have caused customers to ask for higher levels of power. We have therefore recently designed and created 2 more connectors that serve specific needs that customers had. The first one of these is this middle band, the IP21, and you've guessed it, the radius is 21 mil. This connector, again, has the option of either the duplex LCs or the MT ferrule, but this time has 2 8-gauge AWG pins, which is, as you can see, 10 mil squared worth of power. This was designed for an antenna application where the customer only needed 2 fibers connecting, along with a slightly higher power requirement. After this, we knew that we could fit in our MT ferrule into the same housing, which gives the customer the option of having a higher fiber count if needed. You can therefore bring up to 24 fibers up the mast, which can then be split out into the 2 fibers or whatever combination is needed. The next specific request that we had was for even more power, but for this time with 4 fibers. Again, our engineers got together and went through what specs the customer wanted and where this would be used. After this sort of consultation we had with our customers, we developed the IP25. Now, this has 2 6 AWG pins, 16 mil squared worth of power, and then the 4 LC connectors. It was designed for specific use on macro cells, and again fitted the brief of only having 1 cable coming up the mast. This not only saves on the cost for attaching cables to the mast, but also saves time on installation on the installation side, as 2 cables obviously takes longer to install than just 1. Now, the beauty of this type of cable and connector is that you can see that it takes the cable directly from the baseband unit, or the BBU, at the bottom of the tower, up to a distribution box that is up near the RIU, or radio remote units. Now, inside this box here, the customer can do whatever they need to suit their requirements. They can split the power and fiber out and then service the radios directly with whatever connectivity is needed. In this instance, the customer takes the power out separately and takes it to where it's needed, and then connects the optics directly into the transceivers within the radios. Now, the beauty of all of Senko's connectors is that you can obtain them from a large number of sources. We design the components and connectors, and they're then available to everyone in the market. We really like working with a large number of people and companies who have their own specialities that they can add around our products and tailor the solution to the end user's needs. Now, as you may or may not know, Senko hasn't only been focusing on the wireless side of things. We've been working hard throughout all areas of the telecoms and data center industries. Now, the 2 shining examples of this are the CS and SN connectors here on screen on the left-hand side. Now, these connectors were designed to both increase density within the data center and allow for greater flexibility with cable. They are connectors of choice for both the QSFP and OSFP transceiver MSAs, and you can see from the screen that the size of both of these connectors are smaller than the LC connector. They have a smaller pitch between the ferrules, which allows for the bodies to be smaller, and therefore this is where the space saving comes into play. They also use the standard 1.25mm LC ferrules, which is a proven technology and already has the ecosystem built around it when it comes to cleaning, polishing, and inspection. Now, although they were designed for the data center side of things, they're going to be more important in the wireless side going forward. Now, the reason for this is the two areas are sort of merging. We have a need for higher speeds and lower latency with 5G. Now, because of this, something called edge computing comes into play. Now, in simple terms, this means that the data will be processed closer to where the request is made by smaller data centers dotted around all over the place, rather than having to travel hundreds of miles through the network to large data centers. This, of course, saves time and also bandwidth in the network. These connectors will be used here for the density purposes. The other reason I've mentioned these connectors is that it nicely links into the latest evolution of the IP16. Now, after speaking with a few customers, we were asked to come up with a solution on the radio side of things. The customer was looking to connect a number of RIUs on a macro cell that each had 3 SFP transceivers within them. After giving this challenge some thought, we found a way of melding our latest, smallest density SN connector into the IP16 housing. Now, this allows the user to have the high quality LC ferrules servicing each of these radios. This connector has the option of using either 4 or 6 ferrules, depending on what the customer wants, with this middle set of ferrules here not being there when the 4 ferrule option is bought. Now, the beauty of using this method as opposed to the more common MPO to LC means that you save on cost, redundant fibers, but most importantly, you have a better loss. As if you compare a low loss LC ferrule to the low loss MT, you've got 0.15 dB of loss for the LC compared with 0.35 on the MT. Therefore, every connection that has this choice of connector improves on the link budget, effectively meaning the power needed to send the signal down the link is lower using the LC style ferrules, saving cost further down the chain. A further advantage of using the LC ferrules is the issue of cleaning. Now, this is something that us here at Senko have a real passion about. In particular, my colleague Brian Teague is an expert in this field and is constantly coming up with ways to see how we can help our customers out on this. As a general rule, it is easier to clean and then inspect the LC ferrules than the MPO equivalents. We have a full range of cleaners available for all types of end face, including both, again, LC and MPO. And this, coupled with our smart probe inspection scope, is a great way of making sure that every time a connection is made, that the end face is clean and contamination free. Of course, if everything is checked correctly before it's installed, this saves on errors down the line of contamination, dust, which can again take a long time to find out and can cause a lot of cost. You'll see on this slide on screen how the customer is using this connector in their network. They took an IP MPO cable up the trunk up the tower, sorry, and then broke out the fibers in the box near the RIUs. They then used this connector, the IP16SN here, and then fanned it out to 3 duplex LCs that connect directly into the transceivers. I know this shows there's 4 RIUs on the screen, but we know that most systems operate with 3 RIUs. And this shows that you can use this product and still have some redundancy if required. Now, the most recent product that we've designed for outdoor use is our LC waterproof connector. Now, at first glance, I'm sure the first question on most people's lips is, what's so special about this in comparison to any other LC connector or adapter? Now, the beauty of this is that when they are mated together, you have an IP68 rated seal that doesn't allow any water ingress. In layman's terms, you've got a waterproof connector, which obviously is where the name comes from. The reason how this came about was twofold. We had customers telling us they wanted an IP rated connector, but didn't want the size, bulk, and also the cost that is associated with its protection. We also understood that radio makers were looking to reduce the size of their equipment in all areas, from the big macro cells right down to the small cells. With the global rollout of 5G, this was of course inevitable, as although we all want the benefits of having the higher bandwidth and the associated speed at our fingertips, we don't want to be seeing huge radios dotted around on every street corner and lamppost. Therefore, the smaller these cells can be, the happier everyone is. So when we sat down and discussed internally how we could solve each of those issues, we thought, is there a way of effectively killing 2 birds with 1 stone? Now, the LC waterproof is that deadly stone. The way in which it works is that there is a seal on both the connector and the adapter, and only when they are mated together does this IP68 protection happen. On the other side of the adapter, you can use any standard LC. And as with all of our products, this is open source and will be available for a number of different places. Due to its smaller size, this product is ideal for use with the newer, smaller radio units that have a slimmer design. This is because it has a standard LC adapter footprint, which is, of course, is a lot smaller than a lot of the current well-known outdoor connectors on the market. In rough terms, you're looking at about a 40% reduction, as you'll see on the slides. LC waterproof here, 24.4 by 13.7, and some of the very well-known competitor products here are obviously a lot bigger. Now, to show that we don't stand still in our products, we're currently designing a small cover that can be placed over the LC waterproof once it's installed, just to give it that little bit of extra oomph and protection, which is great, especially in some of the harsher environments around the world, for example, the Russian tundra, or the worst of all, the rain in Manchester. This brings us on to the product that personally I'm most excited about, the IP9. This connector is the smallest of our standard IP range, coming in with a diameter of just 18 mil. This is one of the smallest harsh environment optical connectors in the world. It came about through conversations that we were having with customers who wanted a connector that would fit the reducing space that will be on future radios of all sizes. Plus, when it came to FTTH, we were told smaller is better. We settled upon this size as it was the smallest OD that would house the SC connector, the MPO, and our latest SN connector, but that also allows the standard size cabling at the rear. Now, having a connector that size with the ability to house the variety of different connector types allows great flexibility within a network that uses the same adapter cutout. You have the options of 1 fiber with the SC, 2 with the SN, and then up to 12 with the MT version. Each of these connector choices has its place within the fiber networks, with the MPO and SC combination being a great option when it comes to FTTH, and the MPO and SN combination is better when it comes to the FTTA side of things. You'll see on this slide how a greater density can be achieved with the IP9 range, even when compared to our standard IP16 products. You'll see at the top on those closures that you're effectively doubling the density. Now, this, of course, means that the closures can be made smaller, which again is positive, as when installed, it's less of an eyesore on the public. Another advantage of this connector is that you can utilize the different connector choices for a wide range of transceiver footprints. The SN for the SFPs, SC for the BIDI SFPs, and then the MPO for the QSFP. We think that having these options is great for customers as it allows the same footprint on the IP side, but gives that flexibility on the back end. And just to clarify, we know that obviously the SFP and the LCs on the transceivers, I was talking about the SN and the SC on the adapter on the IP side of things. Now, I don't have an image for this, but the next logical step in our mind was adding the option of power to the IP9 connector. The idea behind this is mainly for small cells that don't require too much power. Although it's still in the design phase, it just shows that we're constantly evolving our products and looking forward at how we can solve problems that may not even exist yet. So before I finish and we go into our Q&A, I just wanted to very briefly show you a few of the other wireless products that we have. We're constantly looking to push the development of new products forward and see where we can possibly improve upon products that already exist out in the market. So you'll see here we're developing a hybrid connector that has a grounding pin in it. The next slide shows that we have an indoor hybrid connector that is in the design stage. This is going to be used to supply indoor small cells and distributed antenna or DAS systems. It will supply them both the power and the fiber that they need. Now, we know that as 5G coverage increases, the demand for data will primarily be from indoor applications, whether it be people browsing social media and videos at work or playing games whilst at home. VR being a huge thing in this as well. We will therefore see a huge increase in the number of indoor cells to cope with this demand, so we feel that this connector will be an important addition in the near future. Now, on this slide and the following one, we have an example of WDMs that we offer with varying configurations, including AAWGs. Now, the great features of using this technology is that you can maximize the fibers that are already deployed within a network without having to lay new cables, which of course has huge cost advantages. As getting these new cables laid in these countries like the UK costs an arm and a leg, a lot of money. These products can be coupled with our new CS and SN high density connectors, as it can save space on modules, which again reduces the size of these modules and therefore the visual impact. Now, I'm more than happy to discuss these products in more details offline with people, but they're just here to show that here at Senko, we want to be at the forefront of technologies and offer whatever our and your customers need to suit their networks. So the main purpose of this talk today was not in fact to simply just show you our range of products that we have and for me to tell you that they're the best thing ever. I mean, hopefully that's naturally come across. The main purpose was to emphasize that as a company, we are constantly in dialogue with people from all aspects of the industry, whether it be people looking at the next generation transceivers, all the way through to those looking at hybrid connectors for oil and gas purposes, from termination houses that only supply the broadcast industry to the radio manufacturers themselves. Through talking to people and trying to understand what exact needs they have and where they and we feel there is the opportunity to create something new is how as a business we have grown, and it is where our focus is now. In relative terms, we are a small company that can be very agile and get things done in short periods of time. But on the flip side, we're also global, as we have a presence on all 6 continents with 14 office locations and hundreds of staff members worldwide. We like to think globally, but act locally. We want to work with companies and people who feel that they can benefit from a partnership. And we want you to feel that you can approach us for all your fiber needs and lean on the expertise in these areas that we have. So thank you very much for your time today. If you have any questions that I've not seen jump up yet, then feel free to ask away about the products or us as a company. If I can't answer them immediately, then I'll make sure that I get back to you with the information as soon as I can.